service the valves, start by removing the discharge valve plugs with a 32mm wrench or socket. After removing the valve plugs, inspect the O-rings for cuts, nicks, or damage. Use a needle nose pliers to remove the spring retainer washers and inspect them for damage. Note the direction of the washer's curve for reinstallation later. Next, use the needle nose pliers to grasp the top of the spring retainer. Wiggle it while pulling away from the manifold to remove the valve assembly. Inspect the spring retainers for damage or wear. To disassemble the valve assemblies, insert a flat-tip screwdriver through the spring retainer just above the valve. Twist to create a small gap between the spring retainer and the valve seat. Place the flat-tip screwdriver in the gap and twist it to separate the spring retainer completely from the valve seat. Inspect spring retainers for cracks, excessive wear or damage. Inspect springs for proper tension, excessive wear or damage. Inspect the tapered surface of valves for wear, pitting or damage. Inspect the tapered surface of valve seats for wear, pitting or damage. Inspect the valve seat O-rings for cuts, nicks, or damage. If the valve assembly separates during removal, set the spring retainer aside. Use the needle nose pliers to remove the spring. Then remove the valve. To remove the valve seat, insert reverse pliers into the inside diameter of the valve seat and squeeze. Twist, then pull the seat from the manifold. Use a pick to remove the O-ring from the valve seat. Remove the O-ring from the valve plug. Install the new O-ring onto the valve plug. Install the new O-ring into the groove of the valve seat. Inspect the tapered surface of the valve seat and O-ring. Place the valve seat on a flat surface so the tapered surface faces up. Place the valve with the tapered surface facing down onto the valve seat. Set the spring onto the valve. Position the spring retainer over the spring and tap it onto the valve seat with a rubber mallet. Apply a lubricant to the outside surface of the valve seat O-ring. Insert the valve assembly into the manifold and press it into place. Use a small socket to help seat the valve assembly into the bore. Install the spring retainer washer onto the spring retainer with the curved side facing down. Apply a lubricant to the valve plug O-ring. Hand thread the valve plug into the discharge manifold. Use a 32mm socket wrench or impact wrench and torque to specifications. To service the inlet valves, start by removing the 10 hex socket head screws from the discharge manifold using an 8mm hex wrench. Next, use a rubber mallet to tap the discharge manifold to separate it from the inlet manifold. Remove the discharge manifold and place it on a flat surface. If the high-pressure seal spacers stay in the inlet manifold, remove and reinstall them into the inlet manifold. To remove the inlet valve assemblies from the manifold, insert reverse pliers into the inside diameter of the valve seat and squeeze. Twist, then pull the valve assembly from the manifold. To reinstall the inlet valves, insert the spring retainer washer into the valve chamber with the curved side facing up and centered over the hole in the manifold. Lubricate the valve seat O-ring. Install the new inlet valve assembly with the spring retainer end facing down into the discharge manifold and press it into place. Position the pump vertically so it rests on the rear crankcase cover. If a high-pressure seal spacer came out of the inlet manifold during disassembly, Use a socket the same diameter as the spacer and tap it with a rubber mallet to seat it completely. Carefully slide the discharge manifold over the ceramic plungers and press towards the inlet manifold. Use a rubber mallet to tap the face of the discharge manifold until the manifolds are flush against each other. Position the pump horizontally so it rests on the feet of the crankcase. Hand thread the 10 hex head screws into the manifold. Then use an 8mm hex wrench to tighten and torque them to proper specifications.